Okay, this is lecturette number 2, continuing our discussion of just doing some basic beat building in Reaper using Spitfire Labs. If you didn't watch lecturette 1, you're probably going to want to see that because this picks up right where that one left off. And in this short discussion, I would just want to talk a little bit about looping in Reaper. I'm going to try to keep this quick. So I have this beat, very simplistic, boring, unusable, and all that. We'll get to that beat that I created, and it goes like this. And that's it, right? That's my MIDI item. Now, if I want to hear that, if I want to just kind of hear that looping, I can click this little loop button, and but it's going to loop back to the beginning. You see what it did there? So if I want, I can create a time selection by clicking up in the timeline area and dragging. And now, and I can use that. I can also, we'll talk about in a later video, I can use that to build elements of my beat. But right now, I'm going to hit escape to clear that timeline selection. And I want to show you some other ways that you can loop. Let's turn this off. And let's say I want this beat to go for like 3 bars in my song. I can just drag like that, right? And it loops. So that's pretty cool. And of course, with looping, it's important to understand that whatever's in that first measure is going to be part of the loop. Right? Let's add, for instance, just for a second, I'm going to add some hi-hat notes. Right? And by the way, some of you might be noticing all these notes are red and all the velocities are at the top, which is not ideal. It's something we're going to address in a later video. Right now, I'm just going to leave it. You notice when I add those notes here, it fills in over here. I'm going to get out of the MIDI editor, and now great. Okay, so we're looping a little bit further on, and I can shorten the loop. I can just bring it back. Now, a couple of other things that are kind of interesting in Reaper. One thing is if I want to create a new, let's say I want to create a different beat somewhere, and I hit Command or Control on your PC, I get the pencil, and I drag. Oh, you'll notice that I'm not creating a new MIDI item here, but I'm continuing this loop because this is selected. And you might also notice that the loop begins from where the cursor is selected, right? So it doesn't start at the beginning of the beat. So there are 2 things I can do here. If I wanted to just repeat that beat, I can position the cursor over there. I'm not sure if cursor is the real name for it. Command, and now I have to make sure this is selected and make sure that the cursor is where I want it. And now I can drag. It works like that. If I want to create a new MIDI item, like what's my original intention, I'm just going to unselect this and click and drag, and now I've got a blank beat here. And the last thing I want to cover in this video is what if I want to turn this 1-beat loop into a 2-beat loop. I want to extend the MIDI item, and I can't do that right now because it just loops, right? So what I'm going to do is select this, and I'm going to right-click over here, and I am going to choose from Item Settings. I'm going to deselect Loop Item Source, and you'll see I've set a shortcut for that, but I'm going to skip that for now. I'm just going to click Loop Item Source, and now when I drag this, I'm extending the length of my MIDI item. Now, if I go back and I turn it back on, Loop Item Source, now I'm going to be looping that 2-bar idea, right? Whereas the second bar has nothing in it. But these are some basic looping things that work in Reaper and things to think about. I'm going to stop this right here, and I hope that was helpful. Have a good one.